Hi again then guys, and so we've got another PP specific circuit setup for you today, and this time it's another requested build, this time for the Zytek Z11SN from Nissan. Now I've gone for racing soft tyres, but obviously you don't need to. As far as suspension, we've got the springs on 18 front and rear, the dampers to 4, all round anti-roll we've left on 3, neutral camber and toe. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. For the diff, you've got a number of options with this car, because as with most LMP style vehicles, you can adjust them to really completely change their handling characteristics. You can have them very inclined to understeer, very inclined to oversteer, and it really depends on what kind of driver you are. I prefer my cars to have stiffer, heavier steering, because they tend to be more predictable and they don't slide around as much. I personally prefer that. I like having a car that you have to wrestle with through corners, probably why I'm a fan of big trucks and muscle cars as well. So for this one, I've gone for that kind of characteristic. So I've got the highest initial torque, the lowest acceleration, and the highest braking sensitivity. As far as the power, this car's not a straight line machine anyway, so there's no point in trying to keep that power high, because even if you do keep it high at the expense of weight, it's still not going to be all that quick in a straight line. So this is purely a grip, cornering, handling based tune. So we do have an oil change. We've reduced the power down to 89.3% to get us down to 600 pp, of course. Left the weight exactly as it is because you don't want to give up that advantage, and we are running the maximum downforce. Downforce, of course, as with many things, is down to user discretion depending on what track and again your personal driving style is required. For the auto setting, technically you could go a little bit longer because you will have a tendency to get up to your red line, especially in draft with this particular tune, so adjust it as necessary. But I've got an auto setting of 149, then for the individual gears 4.1, 2850, 2150, 1.7, 1.4 and 1.2 with a final drive of 3.2. So that's it overall for the mechanical setup. With this particular gear setup, incidentally, you can get the car up around 170-ish on most straights. So it's actually not that bad for its power. So, as I said, that's it overall for the mechanical setup. Now let's take it out to an actual racetrack to see what it's actually capable of. Now, one of the great things about this particular car, because like all cars it does have its downsides, particularly straight line performance, is that it's a very easy to drive car, especially in the LMP class. It's very beginner friendly, it doesn't really require all that much skill to drive it fast, and it allows you a certain level of freedom to throw the car through corners. Whereas in something like a Pascalo or a Sauber C9 or a 787B, you have to be much more controlled. You have to have self-control in the amount of throttle you use, especially fully upgraded. And to some degree, you have to constantly bear in mind that these cars are extremely powerful, ultra lightweight, and can very easily spin up their tyres. With this car, that's much easier to deal with, because you've got far less power, but still that low weight. So around corners, this car is a formidable opponent. It's not necessarily the quickest track car in the game for its specific PP, so don't go into all situations expecting a victory every time. But if you do use this car, especially on tight technical circuits, it will serve you very well. And it's also very easy to drive, which, and many people don't think about this, but that actually makes it a very good choice of endurance race car. Because in an endurance race, if you are lap after lap having to constantly fight against the car trying to spin out, that's going to be very mentally taxing. Whereas if you're driving a car that's very forgiving, you can easily get to the end of an endurance race without feeling mentally taxed, because the car is forgiving, it allows you to work with it without constantly fighting against you, and this car does that. So if you do decide to use this car, obviously I hope you find it fun and competitive at the 600 pp level, and if you'd like to keep up with other tunes like this in the future, be sure to hit subscribe down below to keep up with those as soon as they are released. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.